All right. Welcome back to another Paradigm live stream. This is our 12th live stream of 2025. And today on the call, we have me, Parker Rogers, and I'm joined by our co-founder and our master presenter, Fabio Di Letta. And this week, we are going over our Git features in the Paradigm Code IDE. And this is one of my favorite features in Paradigm because since we started Paradigm in what, Fabio, 2020? What year did you launch
2020,
it?
yeah. End of 2020, yeah.
Perfect. There was a major focus on making sure that analytics engineers or people that use DBT with whatever data title they have can use Paradigm regardless of their experience with Git. So if someone has years of experience with Git, they can use what we call our Git Advanced mode, which allows you to manage all of your Git workflows in our integrated terminal, or they can use a different feature set, which we call Git Lite. And that's primarily what I use. And when Fabio and I are working on projects, he uses Git Advanced. He's able to do whatever he needs to do with my branches, with his branches. And I can mainly just click around a UI, but still accomplish all the same tasks. So Paradigm and our Git workflows are great for analytics engineers of any experience level. So Fabio is going to walk us through a lot of that. So Fabio, with no further ado, the time's yours.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Parker, for the intro. Yeah, I still see today that Git is definitely one of the biggest challenge for most teams in terms of like how to handle Git workflows, how to work with Git in general. I think it's always a pain. And I think it's two things that at the very beginning, they're always confusing. Why do I need to create a branch? Why do I need to stash thing? What stash means? What commits mean? What does all this mean? Definitely from a product perspective, we wanted to solve this problem and make it just a lot easier for users. So we'll go through a bunch of workflow. Let's kick things off. So I'm going to run a model just to set the scene. And I expect that there should be something that doesn't work in this model. And we'll go through some of the things that we build a Paradigm to go through the workflow of we need to fix some of our SQL. How do we go about it? We see an error here. We say, okay, there's an invite identifier. I can go here and I'm just going to look at, okay, what is the, okay, it's race ID. That's the right column name. Okay. So I can go and I can say, okay, let me go and try and make a change. And we can see, okay, right, only editor mode. What is this about is fundamentally the things that whenever we start working with Paradigm, the main branch is locked as a read-only branch by default. That is so that you can not start creating commits against the main branch and create a bunch of problems. But from the workflow perspective, how this works, okay, the first thing we need to do is to create a branch. So in Paradigm, we created Git Lite, which makes it super easy to go and create a branch. So I can just click on the button, I give it a branch name, let's say we'll call it DinoAI. There's a bunch of questions around naming conventions and things that different teams uses, but we can create a branch. And this is the beauty of this functionality, is that we automatically create the branch from the most recent and up to version of the main. So you don't really have to worry about where I'm creating the branch from. Is it main? Is it another branch? We basically snapshot your repository and say, okay, now we can start your work. It is as simple as now, okay, I'm going to make my changes in here. I'm going to change this thing. I'm going to try and run it again. Okay. Let's see, I just want to make sure that everything is working. And now we can go through the workflow of how easy it is to actually complete this sort of task using Paradigm. So one of the definitely favorable functionality that we built very early on within AI is that, okay, a lot of time we've seen people writing commit or change, like things which are not really easy to understand from the point of view of somebody that's reviewing those PRs and those pull requests. We built with DinoAI the ability for you to just have a one-click action to generate a commit message. And this is way better than any other commit message than most of us will end up writing. So we scan the repository, we understand what is the diff or the delta within your changes between this and my main branch, and then we generate these commit messages, which are just a lot more insightful in there. And then we have a one-click option, which does a bunch of things for us behind the scenes. So the first thing is we create a commit message, we push it to your remote, but also we check and we understand if you're not falling behind with some of your peers, right? This is really how simple it is to work with Git within Paradigm. So even if you're just starting with Git, it really doesn't matter. You can get to start accomplishing some of those stuff very quickly. The other thing that we built with Git Lite is the ability to work on building functionalities without having to think about merge conflicts too much. So what I mean by that is I'm going to try and create a merge conflict on this branch now. So just bear with me 1 second. I'll try and do a bunch of things that hopefully will create for us a ugly merge conflict. So I'll do this, driver name details, for example. I'm just changing a bunch of things. Okay, perfect. What I'm doing now is I'm just working on creating a commit here on GitHub. So nothing you're seeing right now, but now I can go ahead and start making additional changes to this file. So let's say I want to rename driver name to driver full name, and then championship position. Maybe I rename this to ranking position king. Okay. And also I rename this one here to position ranking here. So basically I'm making some additional changes. Now let's imagine that in the meantime, somebody else has been either working on the similar branch or merging some code to production. So I'm going to go ahead and create a commit. And what I suspect is that I'm going to click on commit and push. And here is where we are checking and refreshing the state that we have. And you see the first thing is saying to me is actually, hey, somebody else has made additional changes to this branch. And we're basically guiding the user on making sure that those changes are first pulled in a Git tab. And here is where we have a bunch of merge conflict that we have to solve. And we'll see this is probably one of the most painful things for working with Git when you come across these things. But in Paradime, what we did is we built this visibility so that you're able to quickly identify what is a merge conflict within one or more file, which files have merge conflict, and how to resolve it. So we always have 2 options or 3 options, but it's quite rare. And we go for the third one, which is, okay, I want to accept my current changes or somebody else's changes that are coming in. So I can just click on accept current change and I'll resolve the first part. And then I can go ahead and also look at these other merge conflicts. Okay, here I want to keep probably the current change here and also the current change here. Okay. So now then I've resolved my merge conflict. I'm now complete, and we can see the red alert is gone. I can click on write commit again to go and generate a resolve commit message, and I can click on commit and resolve here. So we really help teams on working through resolving merge conflicts as easy as possible to the UI without having to get stuck on managing something like this really complex merge conflicts around, particularly when you're working with larger teams. It's very likely that you end up making changes to one file or other files and other people are working simultaneously. This is definitely one of the things that whenever you get into a merge conflict can be as painful, but with Paradime, it's a pretty smooth experience. Now, let's imagine that we finish up this work. The next thing up that we have to do is actually, we want to create a pull request description, right? So we want to be able to finalize the work and say, hey, this is the changes we made to this in this branch, so our reviewers can go and generate those for us. And this is where DinoAI with dinoprompts come into help. So I can use one of the generate pull require description prompts here, and we pass as context automatically the diffing between my current development branch and my main branch. So by pressing enter, based on the structure I have, and of course the prompt and the pull request template, and I want to use my change. Press the button. What we do is we, again, looking at the diffs between the branches, and we basically generate this for you right away. So I can effectively take this code or take this pull request description, copy it, go into my pull request, paste it in, and merge the code. So I'm going to just do that for now. So I'm just going to copy this. And here you have a one-click action to go and open our pull request, by the way. So I'm just going to switch tab here. So now I'm in GitHub. I can right away create my pull request. I can go here and just add my pull request description that I have here. And I can probably go ahead and create a pull request, and it's all complete, it's all done. If I wanted to, I can probably do something like getting like a markdown version of that from instead of a standard copy and paste, which I'm doing now. So that from DinoAI perspective, I can actually get this that looks better. So I'm just going to paste this in now. Again, try it from DinoAI. There we go. So we created the super simple way, the commit message using AI. We also created the pull request description, and I can go ahead and now merge my branch if I want to. So I can click on merge request and move on with this. So if I go back now to Paradime, what I have is my branch is complete, so I can actually start some guess, additional piece of work if you want to here. And this is where I want to give you a glimpse of how in Paradime we can do a bunch of more things. So if I want to go now and go on the main branch again, now we can say, okay, there are actually some things and everything is getting updated for me automatically. I don't really have to change branch, fetch, pull, all these sort of things is done. But also if I want to delete a branch, because that branch is being merged, the one we just created, so I don't really need it anymore, you can also trigger this manually. I can click on that and see if there is any branch that can be like merge available to me. I can do that in the case there isn't any yet. The other thing I want to show you now is how we embedded the additional experience or different experience within Paradime if you want to have more, to work with more complex scenarios. So you can switch to Git Advanced in here, and Git Advanced allows you to do a bunch of more things. You can use the terminal as well, and this is standard. So I can actually use the terminal if I want to, for example, work on different branches from here. So I can do create branch here, and then I'll do branch. So I'm using now the terminal to create a new branch if you want to. I can check branch if it exists, or I can actually do git checkout there. So I can actually easily, if I want to use the terminal to create branches, I can do so from here. And let's say that now I want to go and make some additional changes to this. I can maybe rename this total wins in each season, example. Okay. I can go ahead and make additional maybe changes here. I'll say I want to rename this circuit reference. Okay, so I can do, of course, as many changes as I like. And here's where, again, I can use the Git Advanced UI here to individually stage changes and then commit them. So update column name here, and then that's it. And then I can maybe commit again from the UI. In a similar way, I can actually do commits also from the terminal. So if I do git add here, I'm going to actually stage my changes, and then I can do commit git commit. And I'll change this here to update column alias. Yep. And of course, from here now, I have a bunch of changes that I need to push. So I can do git push from here. And it's okay, actually, this branch is new. It hasn't been pushed to the upstream. So I can just copy and paste and send enter. So really everything you do as a standard experience with the terminal is fully enabled within Paradime. You can literally do staging, stashing, popping, all these functionalities. They're all available for users to use. But we see that with Git Lite, it's just a lot simpler, a lot better. It'll just makes the whole experience of working with Git a lot more seamless for particularly people that are kind of getting started with Git. Is extremely beneficial. The other thing I want to walk you through today now is one of the recent additions we made to Paradime, which is support for Git Blame and Git Lens in general. Let's look at a few use cases. So let me go back, and I'm going to go and search for my file. So I'll open this one here. And on the left panel, we added this new feature, which allows you to see and understand a little bit more about what happened in a given file over time. So as more people will work on different branches against the same file, we create a history, right? So we want to be able to understand what this history looks like in there. Let's start with, actually, I'll take another example here of something I know that we've changed recently. So I can see on this file here, there are a couple of things. One is you can now hover, as I select one line, I can see the Git blame, which is the recent Git commit message I had on this particular line about this change. And from here, I can see the commit headers, I can see the changes, and a few other metadata information available to me. While I'm on a certain amount of lines, I can actually see, and this is actually quite useful, I can see the history of that line over time, right? So in a larger code base, you might have 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 100 of commits on the same line. I can actually see how that line of code has evolved. So I can actually click on this and I can say, okay, in the previous commit, this is what the file looked like. Okay, we changed the source name in here. The other thing, I'll just close this for a sec, is we can see the file history. I'm just going to collapse here. So this again is not to a specific line, but just generically, we can actually see all the history of all the commits that have happened here. I can see that, okay, if I want to go back to this commit, there were a bunch of commits that happens to this file prior. If I want to go and change, let me just put a different branch name, different files. If I want to go and go back to sources in here, so I can see my file history of how this source file has changed. And these are all different commits that have happened over time to this file. So again, from auditability perspective, to really understand what happened to a given file, you can now do this in Paradime out of the box. It kind of like brings so much more visibility within anyone's Git workflows there, which is pretty awesome. The other thing is that sometimes you might come across a scenario where you want to search for a given commit, right? So when I was like, hey, I remember we made this change and we created commits, but I don't remember where we did this. So you can actually use the search commit feature. You can search by message, by the author, by the commit SHA files, if you want. And this is where using DinoAI to generate those commit messages to be a lot more contextual, it helps you because then also the search is a lot easier. So I can search for something like this, and I can see here, okay, it returns to me a bunch of commit messages that contain the word rename. And I can actually go here and explore a little bit more about what this file looked like and what did we do here. So it really gives you now the ability with Git Lens in Paradime to navigate left and right through all your commit history without having to be effectively a Git expert, which I think is a massive helper for my teams. As teams have started migrating into Git Lite, I see less and less people using Git Advanced. It's more like a preference at this point, but the commit message with DinoAI is definitely the killer feature everyone loves. So this is a glimpse of how things work in Paradime from Git perspective. And yeah, I think for us, it's about make it simple, make it easier for anyone to start with Git. Value is not on working with Git itself. Most anybody is generating data pipeline and insights and supporting their stakeholder. And we want to make sure that teams can focus on that and not battling with merge conflict and creating branches and updated branches as they develop code.
And Fabio, a couple questions regarding Git Lens. Is Git Lens available for both users of Git Lite and Git Advanced?
Very good question, Parker. Yes, it is, irrespective of whether you are on Git Advanced or Git Lite. For example, I'm currently on Git Advanced here. I can switch to Git Lite. I still have full access to the Git Lens functionality there.
Okay, so the UI is the same regardless of the
That's
Git
right.
experience you're using.
That's right.
And the second question I have is, what's a practical example of when you would use Git Lens? So
Very
you
good question.
explained the one of finding a previous commit message. Is there like something that you've used it for in the past that has been beneficial?
Yes. So the main thing is usually around if there is like a breaking change or a change in the business logic, it is about really going back to that history and thinking about, okay, when did we change? When did we re-alias this column? And why did we did? Who did it? What's the reason behind it? It doesn't have to be necessarily because something is broken. Ultimately, to put it this differently, is that a data model contains business logic of a certain transformation of our data. And over time, that data model will change. So with Git blame and Git history, we are able to understand how that logic in that file has changed over time. Maybe revenue was calculated using a certain formula, and then that has changed. And the question is that when did it change, and how did it change, and what did it look for? So you have this true history of a data pipeline available to you super easy and super quickly inside of the.
Okay, and also switching gears a little bit. So I noticed in that pull request message that you created, it had at the bottom this option to like how to test this new branch, the updates that were made. Is that something that you included in the prompt, or did DinoAI generate that message? Because I thought that was really useful.
Very good question. This is something that I set up in my Dino prompt file. So let's look at that for a sec. I basically provide this sort of prompt in there. We say provide a summary, motivation, how to test the changes, and use max 5 bullet points there. Now, teams can modify and of course personalize this experience. We can even use this feature to say, hey, return the test, and before generating the pull request description, run the test, get the output of the test result, and include them in the pull request description. So we can actually create this very powerful workflow AI part. It's all configurable. Usually it's good to add, like, how do we make sure that what we've done actually works?
Okay, thank you. And for anybody that is updating their DBT project, I think having a prompt that tells your code reviewer how to test your changes will make them very happy. And like Fabio said, you can configure it however necessary to fit your team's needs, but I think that's a really powerful feature that shouldn't be overlooked. So thanks, Fabio, for sharing that. And next on the docket for us, in a few weeks, we are doing a live stream similar to what we've been doing, but we're actually bringing on one of our customers. So we'll be bringing on a customer from a company called PushPress, and Fabio will walk through various features in our code IDE and Bolt, and the customer will share how they're using the tool. So you'll hear us bragging about our tool, but you'll have a little bit more proof because you'll have an end user and a customer backing it up. So that will be in 2 weeks. And until then, thank you for joining. Fabio, thank you for presenting, and we'll see you soon.
No worries. Thanks, Parker. Thanks, everyone.